Hi guys, so really shocking news obviously about the schools being shut down as of Friday and the exams now not happening in May and June. Now what I had previously done is recorded an episode earlier today, then obviously the announcement was made at 5 p.m, so I'm re-recording some bits to make it relevant. So just to give a general update, as I'm sure you know, Boris Johnson has announced that schools are closing as of Friday, apart from in exceptional circumstances. Now that obviously leaves open a huge amount of questions. For instance, how are you guys now going to be graded on how you've been performing now that there are no exams happening? Now, Boris Johnson, when he was challenged on this, didn't really comment on what that was. The only thing that I could find that was offering any clarity was from Kevin Courtney, who's joint head of the NEU, and he made the statement, we note that at this time of emergency, the government has decided that teacher assessment is indeed a good method of giving reliable information about young people's progress and achievement. Now this suggests to me that there will be some kind of predicted grade system put in place. He's the only one that said that at the moment, but that does seem like a relatively likely course of action. Boris is saying that he's going to keep working with the exam boards, etc., to have a representative grade for everybody. Now I'm gonna shift what this YouTube channel is about, and I'm gonna try and stay as up to date as possible on what's happening with the schools, what's happening with university admissions, what's happening with other things, and try and keep you up to date and keep your mind at ease as much as possible in this really trying time. So just to give a summary of what the video is about, essentially I'd taken a survey from loads of you guys through a company called Adapt. They make a really good revision timetable, and they put out a survey asking the things that you were most concerned about, and obviously a lot of it, the vast majority of it, was around Corona. Now the bit that's still relevant is the dealing with uncertainty bit that I recorded. Now, obviously, you could argue there's a bit more certainty now, the fact that you know that exams aren't going to happen, you know that schools are closing, as obviously shocking as it is. But there's still a huge amount of uncertainty, obviously, around things. There's obviously still a huge amount of uncertainty around schools and life in general. So I'm going to include the third point that I made earlier in the day, which is about how to deal with that uncertainty and stress. And I include a few mindfulness techniques from good sources, so feel free to watch that. Again, I'm going to continue to be doing videos and doing posts updating you. We might even go to what you can do in your free time productively, so I'm not going anywhere. There's lots of people that are out to help you. There's loads of YouTubers. I know Primrose Kitten is a massive one who's out there to help you guys. Your teachers, your schools will be thinking of ways to make sure that your best interests are kept at their heart. So a bit of a different episode this time, but have a look at this in terms of dealing with uncertainty. And section number 3, and this is around general feelings of unease around the situation. So a couple of quotes that came out: paranoia due to school, and very powerfully, uncertainty. And this is the clincher for me. Uncertainty is everywhere in the air right now. Nobody has seen this kind of situation before. This does things to the brain. Uncertainty really does things to the brain, and if you were anxious before, it can make it worse. If you weren't, it can induce anxiety. I know I feel anxious at points. So what I can do here is share a few things that I have read from reliable sources and from my own experience about dealing with anxiety that might help you through this, and again, hopefully get you to just be a bit more comforted during this period. So number one suggestion is don't look too much on social media. Don't pass horror stories around about what can happen. Now, one thing in the human brain that can happen is something called catastrophization or catastrophizing situations. Basically meaning you're thinking of the worst case scenario once you're in a stressed state. And this is something that I definitely do all the time, especially when I'm traveling. I did a 6-month travel around India, for instance, and whenever I went somewhere new, I always expected the worst case scenario to happen. I'd imagine it in my head. It would make me more stressed because I was stressed in general. And what can happen is if you're just absorbing too much information from the outside world, negative things, then it can just add to this general sense of anxiety and unease that you can't quite put your finger on why it's happening. So what I'm doing at the moment is just limiting my social media to the 5 p.m. bulletin from the PM and maybe a couple of other things, but not dwelling in that kind of information too much, because there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. Number 2, mindfulness. Now, I've talked about mindfulness before. It's something that I've been practicing for the last 3 months, and it just generally helps you stay in the present and not worry about the future or the past quite as much. Practicing this is something that I do daily. There's plenty of free resources to do it. You've got things like apps, plenty of apps like Calm and Insight Timer. If you just want to give it a go, you can look at YouTube things with guided meditation. Just type in guided meditation into YouTube and find these free resources. You can also pay if it's something that you like. I can recommend apps like Headspace, Calm, and one which is a bit more expensive called Waking Up if you really want to get rigorous with it. If you're stressed, it's worth a go. It's something that's really helped me deal with anxiety in the past and just stay focused in the present. Linked to this is another technique if you don't want to make it a daily practice, and this is something that has been shared by Anxiety UK, a really good charity on mental health, and they have shared something called the Apple technique. Apple technique. And the Apple technique is essentially a 5-step process that when anxiety hits you or the feeling of uncertainty hits you, you have a framework to move or a set of steps to move through that will help you deal with that anxiety and get your head a bit more level. So I'm just going to go through these steps now. I'm going to consult my notes because I want to get it right. So Apple, it's a mnemonic. I think mnemonic is the right word. A in Apple is acknowledge. So acknowledge. So when that feeling comes to you, that feeling of uncertainty, acknowledge it as a feeling and the uncertainty that comes to your mind with that feeling. P is pause. Don't react as you normally do. Don't react at all. Pause and just take a really deep breath. Next P is pull back. So tell yourself this is just the worry talking, and this apparent need for certainty is not helpful and not necessary. Don't believe everything you think. Thoughts are not statements or facts. So this is essentially saying a thought of uncertainty doesn't need to filter into the way that you're feeling. If you notice it beforehand, you can stop that thought overtaking the way that you feel in that moment. So A, acknowledge, P is pause, and P is pull back so far. L is let go. So let go of the thought or feeling, it will pass. You don't have to respond to them. You might imagine them floating away in a bubble or a cloud. Now it sounds, quite ethereal if you're not into that kind of thing, but a really good thing to do is notice that thought. Once you've pulled back from that thought, it's not part of you anymore and you can just let it float away. And E is for explore. So explore the present moment, because right now, in this moment, all is well. Now this is a really, really good point, and the central mantra of mindfulness is that right now, think about how you're feeling, think about the situation that you're in. Everything is okay. The things that you're worried about and are causing anxiety are in the past, or more likely in the current state in the future. Just be in the present, and that will make you feel calmer and help you deal with the uncertainty. Now, it's a bit of a longer video this time, guys. I really hope this helped. If there's anything else that I can help with during this uncertain time, if there's any more videos you want me to make, if there's anything that I can do to help you get through this, please do comment below and let me know, because I'm a resource to be used, and people, teachers, parents, schools, the government are out here on your side to help you as much as possible. Until next week, see you later.